Hi everyone, it's Brian from YourParanormal, and I wanted to give you kind of a framework of how you would go about asking someone to be on your paranormal team. This is the first time that I'm asking someone to be on my paranormal team, and I want to discuss the goals that they have, about what they want to achieve with their paranormal adventure, and kind of like what roles they might actually enjoy, and if they have any specific places that they'd like to go to. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name's Gino. I kind of want to get into this just for the sheer experience of it. I don't want to be 50 years old and go, you know what, I never really got into the paranormal stuff. I never went on an investigation. I want to look back and be able to say, oh, this one time I was at this prison. Our one buddy's house is really haunted. We were there. Crazy stuff went down. Just experience.
Because when I led the college group I led for about 3 or 4 years, it was the same scenario where people would say, well, why would I want to go ghost hunting? And I tell them it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Even if you don't like it, at least you can say that you tried it, and especially if you're interested or curious about the paranormal, if you love those scary movies, I would always recommend at least trying it once with a good, reasonable group that's safe.
As safe as it can be.
Safe as it can be. What's one of your main concerns?
One of my main concerns is being followed home by shadow people. I've seen way too many YouTube videos and too many episodes of A Haunting to know that if you go dabbling around with the paranormal, there's a slight risk you might get followed. And obviously I don't want that to happen, but it's a risk I'm willing to take.
Yeah, and the three things that I always say to people that have those kind of concerns are, one, from my standpoint, I've seen tons of different groups that have, been doing this for 20, 30 years, never had that experience. I think the most that ever happened is like an object at a private residence, an object like fly off in their direction, but nothing really followed them home. So one, I would tell them that there's really nothing that any of these experienced teams have had. I've done 25 investigations, nothing's followed them home. Two, we do protection prayers before and after the investigation, thanking God for the opportunity and, asking God and all the angels to keep us safe throughout the investigation, and that nothing follows us home, and reminds everything there that, under the assumption that ghosts are real and they want to follow us home, that they do not have our permission, this, that, and then that we ask God to kind of help us in that regard. And then the last thing I would say is, Gino, if something, a shadow figure followed you back, the group's got your back. We will sage, we will cleanse, we will all pull together and make sure that you're safe after investigating your house, of course.
It sounds a lot like, if a bear attacks you, we'll give you a toothpick to jab it.
No, come on. And the most important thing is that you have to be well-grounded. That's what I always tell people. If you're afraid, it's okay, but make sure the people that you either are on your team or you join someone else's team, make sure at least the captain of the team is well-grounded, just to make sure that they're okay, to make sure that you're okay, and then everything should be fine. So, is there anywhere in particular that you would enjoy going?
I've never been to a legitimately haunted, if you see an episode of Ghost Adventures or something, like a well-known, famous place. Okay, this place is for sure haunted. I'd just like to go to something like that, check it, whether it's whatever penitentiary or whatever asylum, or just something that's well-known, and to be able to say, oh yeah, I went there one time, it was crazy.
Yeah. And then I would ask, Gino, before we start actually investigating sometime in August, sometime this month, why don't you put together a list of 5 places that you would want to go to? I'd say budget no more than $500, because if you take 10 people, they'd all have to chip in $50 each. I think 50 is probably somewhere in our max per person. So if it's anything the Ohio State Reformatory is kind of it's 100 to 200 per person basically. What it end up coming down to? Maybe we do that once every year or once every 2 years, like a big ticket item like that we actually save towards.
Do we have a distance limit? Like how far away are we thinking? Just within the state, within tri-state, within...
Well, what I would always prefer 150 miles, So my car can go 150 miles, 150 miles an hour. But personally, I mean, I've been to multiple states, Kentucky, West Virginia, everywhere. I mean, everywhere was like kind of close. But I would like, as long as it's within 3 hours driving, because if we're gonna have multiple people driving, I don't want them investigating for 8 hours, and then at like 4 or 5 in the morning, they have to drive 3 hours back.
Yeah.
I've done that before. It's terrible. It's terrible.
Oh yeah, you don't want anybody falling asleep at the wheel.
Yeah.
Because that would suck.
Yeah, I think we went to Moundsville Penitentiary, and that was disgustingly far. And yeah, that's a terrible experience. But I mean, if that's the goal, you just gotta plan it out, take naps and everything. Because in college we didn't do that. We were just like almost up the entire night, the night before, and it was a terrible experience driving. But yeah, so typically I ask, people like, what are your goals? What do you want out of this? And you want to have an experience to show people. Because some people have lost a loved one and they want to kind of prove that something of the paranormal is real. That's like some people's goals. My goal in all of this is to make sure, literally just like what you said, that you get to have this experience. And hopefully all these experiences combined, I can show them using YourParanormal and kind of get other people to get involved in this hobby. And I guess do you have any paranormal history to share with us?
I've got a story or two, but nothing legitimately proven. But like, I knew this girl one time and heard they had a family history where they were haunted, and long story short, they left their house because there was an attack, and I may or may not have seen something like, what is that in your car? And she just goes, oh, well, it follows us. And I was like, oh, all right, I'm gonna go inside and hide.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that was interesting to say the least.
Yeah, and typically most people have those kind of experiences and want to kind of follow up to see if it's real, to see if you can have like a legitimately proven experience. And so that's my goal. I always want hard evidence, which is something that we can capture on audio or visual. But some of my favorite parts about this is giving people personal experiences, something that might not have shown up, but you experienced it. So that's my goal, to get personal experiences and hard evidence. The last thing I want to do is so basically there's 5 different roles. There's the photographer, who takes 2 pictures at minimum of everything. There's the EVP tech, which kind of leads the paranormal investigations when we do EVP sessions. There's the camera operator, which mans the video camera. There's the recorder that records everything. And obviously everyone should have a watch and like, oh, this is when we start the EVP session.
So you mean like write down and record?
Yeah.
Okay.
Recorder, like you've got a notebook attached to a clipboard and you've got a pen, and basically you're going to write down everything with timestamps. So when we go back and review the evidence, we kind of have a reference point.
I shouldn't do that because my handwriting is horrible.
Okay, well, we're not going to do that. And then the last thing is the static tech. So during the setup of the investigation, you want to make sure that all the static audios and static cameras and the hunting cameras and everything are all set up correctly and then taken down correctly.
Okay.
So those are kind of the 5 different roles, and they're all color-coded. So like there's the photographer, the EVP tech who does the talking, the camera operator, the recorder, and then the static tech. Like, what of those 5, what are like your top 3?
You mean top 3 like that I...
What you would want to do. I would recommend you do all of them, even if you have terrible handwriting. It's such a different experience wherever you go, depending on the role. I didn't think I'd like a recorder because I also have terrible handwriting. It is one of the coolest things to be like hyper-focused. Like, he just experienced that. I better write that down. And like during the tour, you're writing down all these notes and everyone else is like looking off and you're like trying to absorb the history. So during the EVP sessions, you can contribute. It's actually cool. So of those 5, and you remember what each one is?
Vaguely.
Okay, so there's the photographer, the EVP tech, the video camera operator, the recorder, and the static tech. Of those 5, what are kind of like your top 3?
The first 3.
The first 3.
Yeah.
So the photographer, the person leading the conversations, and then the video camera guy. Okay. And so I'm going to use that when I'm building my team. Say we have 10 people. I want to make sure, because there's just 2 teams of 5, that where he's going to fit in actually fits into like what he wants. And eventually I'll recommend that he does all 5 at one point. But
dip your toe in everything, see what you're best at.
Dip your toe in everything to see what you're best at and what you actually enjoy. So is there anything else you wanted to say?
I think I've said it all, buddy. I'm all tapped out.
Well, Gino, I wanted to welcome you to Your Paranormal.
Thanks, buddy.